Welcome to the Freely Rooted Mama podcast. Where I am their mother, I make the choice. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another episode with Isla and myself, my little co-pilot, co-podcaster here. Today's conversation is just going to be kind of an open conversation. It's not a specific learning topic per se, but it's around birth and it's around fear of birth. This conversation is being stemmed from a question that I got on my Instagram, which was, why did I want to do a home birth, and aren't I scared not being in a medical facility in case something goes wrong? So I took that question, plus we were just traveling. I was in the bathroom changing Isla, and a girl probably in her early mid-20s came up and was just commenting about how beautiful Isla was. And she's like, oh, I can't wait to be a mom one day. I can't wait to have a baby. I just don't want to have the baby. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, the birth part. She's like, it's terrifying. And it just kind of, usually I'm the type of person that's like, oh yeah, okay. And, I don't really like engage in conversation. I'm more introverted. But this topic just gets me for some reason. So I was like, well, why do you just assume that it's going to be that way? And she's like, TV. She's like, stories. My mom telling me about birth, like, it's traumatizing. I don't want to go through that, but I do want the baby. And I was like, it really doesn't have to be that way. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, I would go back and redo both of my births in a heartbeat. I love giving birth. I love pregnancy. I love birth. I love labor. I love the whole process of it. It makes me want to cry every time I think about it or talk about it. There's something so incredibly freaking beautiful and so amazing that our bodies were designed to do this. And we have been tricked and, coerced into this idea that birth is this fearful, terrible event. And I think that is just so incredibly sad. It's so incredibly sad that the most important day of your life, bringing in a human life into this world, is coded in shame, fear, and trauma. And that's not to say, again, and I've said this on other episodes, there are traumatic births. There are births that things just don't go the way that we wanted. They don't go as planned. Interventions have to be used. God forbid, something terrible happens and mom dies, baby dies. There are those, and I am not diminishing that stuff happens. By all means, I can't imagine anything worse than, losing a baby during labor or, losing a spouse or anything like that. That also makes me want to sit down and cry. But the general picture that we paint of birth is one that is not happy. It's not empowering. It's not coded in confidence and peace. It's coded in fear and interventions and terror, and what this girl came to the table with, that birth is this scary thing. And it does not have to be that way. And I think it's so sad that social media and movies and hospitals and drug companies and all things like this, they all paint this terrible picture of birth, and it doesn't have to be that way. So the whole purpose of this conversation is just, I wish and my hope for the future for young girls, for my daughter one day, is that they grow up in a world where birth is empowering and birth is positive, and we flood social media with more positive birth stories of empowerment and women choosing how they want it to look. And there's nothing more beautiful to me than seeing a birth video and the mom is just smiling after the baby has come out. There's nothing more beautiful than that, because it's the most beautiful, important day of your life. And it irks me so much that, all these other important special days, our wedding, graduations, birthdays, whatever it is, big milestones, promotions, they all have this celebratory factor. And then here we have birth. You're bringing in a freaking human life, and it's coated in fear and darkness and trauma. And it doesn't have to be that way. So what I would do is, if you're listening to this and you have not had babies yet, I think I've said this before, go follow midwives, go follow doulas, go follow birth centers, go follow them because they are out there posting incredible, empowering birth stories that I want you to fill your mind with. I so want the world to shift their perspective of birth, that it doesn't have to be this scary, traumatic, fear-coded thing. It really is this incredibly beautiful, special day that I hope so many future women get to experience. There's seriously nothing more empowering than the fact that you brought in a human life. And it's so cool. Like, one of the things that I've always, that my husband and I, when we talk about the birth of our kids, he always talks about, like, especially with Isaac, because that was the first time, obviously our first baby, he's just like, he's like, I'm just so proud of you. Like, I can't even believe like what you did. And he always laughs too, because he's like, God, your back muscles. He's like, when I was like, because he always does the hip squeeze, and he's like, when I was watching your back, like he's like, I felt like the Hulk was emerging, like the muscles in your back, like muscles I didn't even know you had, just like came out and were contracting. He's like, it's just incredible. And I truly, truly, truly hope for every couple, every woman on this planet, that they get to experience birth that way, and that you get to look back on this day with so much love and joy and peace. That's really, really what I want. So what's the purpose of the conversation? This is just me having a conversation, I guess, really with myself, because nobody's listening right now. Well, I mean, nobody's here talking back to me, but it just got me thinking, like, we have the ability to change the way that women, especially the young women of our world today, view birth. And I hope that we can do that by spreading more empowering stories. If you have a birth story, like, I'd love to hear it. Type it up, send it to me. I'd love to post it on my stories and share it with the world if you're comfortable with it. More people just need to hear about it. And if you are sitting here pregnant, or you're sitting here considering having a baby, thinking about having a baby, go follow all the people. Go follow all those midwives, all those doulas. I am following a bunch of them, so you can just literally stalk my Instagram and go follow a bunch, because they're sharing powerful stories. And this is the way that we should be looking at birth. We should be looking at it a lot differently. We should be going into it with a completely different mindset than having to think that it's this fearful event. So there's my soapbox for today. Thank you for sitting, if you're still listening, thank you for sitting through all of my random thoughts and ramblings of today. And I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next week.